Dean Curry here, Fantasy Football, RSVP. I'm the president and founder. So let's get right to it with the top 12 man PPR league, standard league. We'll go with 12. They're pretty much the standard. Sometimes you see 14 team leagues, but 12 seems to be the most popular. And we will go with the top 12 picks for the NFL draft. Coming up this year, the top 12 picks. It was tough. It's always tough. Tough to make picks. Lots of people have questions, posting different things about who's the number one pick for the NFL draft. And, it's going to cause some controversy because people are going to say, oh, how'd you leave this guy out, that guy out? And, you have 12 people or 20 people that do what I do. And we all have different picks, based on a lot of things. I try to think outside the box. I try to always think of the whole team, the psychology behind the team, the offense, the coaches. Not that other people don't. But we tend to focus a little bit more on not what's on a statistician's sheet or analytics, and we spend a great deal of time talking about analytics, but we tend to think intelligently about the psychology of the game and what's really going on with a franchise, what's going on with the players, talk about injuries. We'll get into Todd Gurley today, degenerative knee condition, and what that means. We'll look at coaches talking about limiting touches, not only in Gurley but McCaffrey, and what they want to do with the offense moving forward. And these are the types of things that, being a personal trainer for the better part of 30 years, I know what a degenerative knee condition is, and arthritis in the knee, and how it affects, because I've dealt with that, and I've nursed people back from those type of injuries or certain conditions, arthritis. People ask me, arthritis in the knee, is this something you could get rid of? No. It's not, despite what people say. And that's the advantage of listening to a personal trainer, massage therapist, licensed massage therapist, someone that's dealt with post-rehabilitation. You can take certain medications to limit the growth or the progression of a degenerative knee condition, maybe slow it down, maybe keep it from accelerating. But as far as getting rid of arthritis, it's not going to happen in this day and age, and it's something you have to pay attention to. And why I preface saying that is, the thing is I don't have Todd Gurley as my number one, and a lot of people don't, and it's hard not to take Todd Gurley at the number one spot. But you saw the Super Bowl, you saw what happened. It wasn't supposed to even be a long injury. And, they didn't play him. Instead, they played him a little bit in the Super Bowl. And it's obviously bothering him. It's arthritic. And it's something he's going to have to deal with. So he's not my number one, unfortunately. I'm sure I'll get a couple of comments on that one. And you could send me comments. I'll answer them on YouTube, but you have to understand, I have to make picks here. It has to be top 12, and I have to be definitive in all my picks. But there's a lot of people that know a lot about football, including the people who follow me. I learn from a lot of people out there. I watch a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of research myself. And, I have some great fans that, we talk about football, and they respect my opinion. I respect theirs. But the number one pick is not going to be Saquon Barkley. It's not. I am going with Zeke Elliott. And I'll tell you why. Saquon Barkley had a great year, okay? He has a wide receiver that's constantly injured in Beckham. The Giants have a pretty inept offense. I'm from New York. I follow the Giants as well as other teams. But we won't get into that. But the Giants' offensive line struggled last year, and Barkley pretty much did it all himself. And you could get away with that the first year, but then, defenses adjust. and they start to, sort of like a quarterback coming in that's a running quarterback, haven't really seen it in a while, and he does well the first half of the season, the second half of the season, and especially the playoffs, they just lock it down on him. And, he's not running as much, he's not doing as much. And that's more or less what's going to happen. A lot of what Barkley brought to the table caught teams by surprise. Just like Mahomes caught teams by surprise, although I'm sure they both will have great years. And I do have Barkley at the number 2. But I have Zeke Elliott at the number 1 for a couple of reasons. Their passing game is really starting to solidify. I actually like their, young tight end. But Witten coming back in a leadership role, that's exactly what that team needs. He'll probably only get, a few dozen, maybe 30 snaps, something like that. Maybe certain parts of the game he'll be in there, but he's just such a leader, and he's so reliable in the blocking game, and that's where they really struggled with some of their running, and that's only going to help Zeke Elliott. Because I just got to say that, Jason Witten's a phenomenal blocker, and especially in the run game. And, having a guy like that teach some of their younger tight ends who I like, and being reliable for a few, couple of catches, few catches in the game, and just being a mentor. It's a young team. It's exactly what that team needs. And Witten can still get open. He still demands attention, which is only going to help Amari Cooper. And I sense they're and they have other reliable receivers on the team, and the offensive line really came together. A lot of people don't realize that the first 8 games, they had guys out on their offensive line all year long. I'm saying, they're going to get healthy. They're going to get healthy. Zeke's number's going to climb. And people were just like, what's up with Zeke? And, he can't do it himself. He has to block. They have a better offensive line. They have a better defense than the Giants. Much better. Okay? They have a better quarterback right now. And I'm obviously, I love Eli Manning, 2 Super Bowls he brought to our town. But, at some point, these guys can't do it himself. Eli could still play if he had a great offensive line, like Luck had last year, or even the Patriots, where, he's not going to get touched. But, he's not a real mobile quarterback, which I'm sure he would admit by, himself. But the thing is they don't have a great offensive line. They don't have a great offense. Beckham can't stay healthy. They have a couple of receivers coming along. Their defense was pretty inept last year, and now they have question marks with Collins and franchising him. It's just not a good football team, and, I just think that that's going to hurt Barkley's numbers, a little bit. And what people don't realize is they really started throwing the ball to Elliott and discovered what a great receiver. They'd thrown it to him before, but they really started, he started having days where he was getting double-digit receptions. And they realized that he's actually a bigger weapon than they thought. And, he's going to have those opportunities with Amari Cooper, and their other receivers and the offensive line and the defense, that they have. I mean, they have very good defense. They lost a player or two, but they have very good defense, not to mention who they get, in the draft. Phil Splot's free agent. This is an early, video here in March, beginning of March. But, Zeke Elliott, they're really going to use him. They talked about using him in the passing game, and he's just on a better team, period. And teams adjust, and when you carry a load for a team where Barkley was just taking a lot of people by surprise, it's not going to happen, this time of year. And the Giants don't have a ton of options. Maybe if Beckham's, available, but I mean, Manning had no time to throw the ball last year. He could have hit Beckham, he could have hit Beckham, but the thing is he was on his back, He's rushing throws, and that just doesn't work well. And when that's not working well, and I don't expect it to be a whole lot better, they're going to start keying and start loading up the line against Barkley. And so Barkley's numbers will be very good. It's hard not to take him at the number one. I really wanted to, but in the end, you have to think outside the box here, fantasy football RSVP. And in the end, I always say this, go with the better team. And the better team is the Dallas Cowboys. The better offense is the Dallas Cowboys. The better offensive line is the better Dallas Cowboys. And frankly, the better receiving corps is the Dallas Cowboys, in my opinion. Especially the way they're starting to blend. And, Dak Prescott's growing up. A lot of people like, oh, he's not this or that. I mean, guy's only played a few years. He's coming into his own. And he's got great chemistry with Amari Cooper, and they're only going to get better. So, and they're going to pass the ball more. I mean, the checklist, I wanted to put Barkley here at number one. The checklist checked Zeke every time, and I was actually going to really put Barkley at the number one. But I had a checklist out, and the checklist was on Zeke's side every time. So we're going to have to go with Zeke. Barkley's going to have a big year, I think, a very big year. I worry if he has to carry too much of the load or people key on him that he gets through the year healthy. Had a couple of knick-knack injuries, and just the way he runs, he like runs right over people. And sometimes that, not to say that Zeke doesn't, but Zeke, he doesn't get tackled hard a lot, Zeke Elliott. He falls to the side. He kind of knows how to fall forward, not get tackled hard. And, Barkley gets tackled really, really hard. And I worry about that. But he's a solid number two. Let's talk about Todd Gurley at the number three. Degenerative knee condition, arthritis. You can't get rid of arthritis. I don't care what anyone says, and not in the industry. They don't know the industry. They don't deal with post-rehabilitation. You can't cure arthritis. The only thing you can do is take special meds to, pain management or degenerative knee condition management, where certain things medications will actually help slow down the process or keep it from getting worse, at least for a little while. But his touches, are going to be limited, and they're going to use other running backs like they did with C.J. Anderson this year. And what a lot of people don't realize about the Los Angeles Rams is, the Cooper Kupp injury really hurt them a lot. And they were really spreading that ball around. And once they couldn't do that anymore, they started keying on Woods and Cooks. And it started back in they were asking Gurley to do too much, and, early in the season he did a lot, but it wasn't on a lot of carries. You know what I'm saying? And sure, they'll be up in games and use the running game, but the coach already said that they have to limit his touches. Still, that said, Gurley will get his touches, and I believe he's at a solid number three. I did want to put Christian McCaffrey ahead of him at the number four slot of the Panthers. It was actually a hard choice, believe it or not, because McCaffrey's numbers, they're utilizing him more in the running game than I thought, and he's just so reliable. He's just like a touchdown maker. The guy could score in so many ways. He runs great routes, too. But their coach actually mentioned that he would like to limit his touches next year as well and preserve him over the years. And for that is the reason why I didn't put him at the number three, because I think, 80% of Todd Gurley is still better than, I can't even say 100%. McCaffrey probably be like 90%. And you have to look at those percentages. It was close. At number five, I kind of like Alvin Kamara. Just because of his versatility. I worry he tends to get a little injured, knick-knack, as well, like little injuries, kind of runs with reckless abandon, but his prowess in the receiving game is just too much to pass him up at number five. I wanted to put Gordon ahead of him, and if Melvin Gordon could stay healthy, I actually would pick up Melvin Gordon over Kamara, because they like to spread the ball around in New Orleans. They like to win in a lot of different ways, even if it's not, running back by committee, and they have, their guys, Ingram and stuff like that, who's pretty much going to be, not available for the most part. But it doesn't matter because they like to have an extra running back in there, and they like to use them because it's just the way they run their offense, especially a power back if they get one, or stick with what they have. We'll see. It's early. It's only March. But, the thing is I really like Kamara. I'm concerned about his the way he plays, the reckless abandon. But his numbers should be good enough to get a solid 5. I mean, come on. And good enough to inch out Melvin Gordon. And the only reason why I don't put Gordon ahead of him is Gordon gets injured a lot. And Gordon has some, knee injuries as well. I won't go into the knee injuries that deep because I did with Gurley, but he's having recurring knee and even feet and ankle injuries, and that concerns me. And they have Eckler, they have other guys on the team that they're starting to implement in the running game, and I think their passing game will actually be better next year. With not just with Allen, but the other guys they have on the team sort of growing up a little. Williams, and I think that they're going to be a tough team. Chargers can be a tough team, but they can get you in a lot of different ways, and the coach is really trying to spread the offense, spread the wealth, and preserve Gordon. And for that, I put Gordon at a solid 6. At this point, after 6 running backs, I really think you have to start thinking wide receiver at this point. And another tough call. A lot of people want me to pick Davante Adams as number 1 receiver, but you have to go with DeAndre Hopkins. I mean, but people forget what he did 2 years ago, and their quarterback, is coming along, and he had a bounce back. He went backwards a little last year, but not really. Their I won't get into the whole quarterback situation, but it takes a while to recover from injuries. And people forget how good their quarterback, and let's focus on the wide receiver, Hopkins was. With Watson throwing to Hopkins, Deshaun Watson, you got to give a guy some time to come back from an injury. And they had no running game last year, and that's going to change this year. And they have a great defense, and they have some great, they have some receivers, Kute, and guys that are, coming along that look really good. And I would, definitely take some pressure off Hopkins. Hopkins, he's just a better receiver than Adams, and I like their situation. And I know Adams catches a lot of touchdowns the last couple of years, and Adams is very reliable, and they use him a lot. But they have a lot of question marks, the Green Bay Packers. Can Aaron Rodgers stay healthy? First of all, he's getting older. He's still Aaron Rodgers, but he's getting older. They're trying to solidify their running game, with Jones. They have some really good young wide receivers, but they have a new coach coming in. They have a whole new offense coming in, and that coach coming in wants to spread the ball around more. He wants to use the tight end position, which isn't used a lot in Green Bay, which is no secret. But I really think, all things considered, you got to do a checklist. Who has the more consistent team? Who has the better defense? Check, Texans. Who has a more consistent team? Texans offense. Who has a better offense? Aaron Rodgers is a better quarterback, but if he stays healthy, but the better offense, I'd probably have to lean towards the Texans. They just have an emerging offense, and if they could get their running game together. They have a coach that's been there for a long time, longevity with a coach. I always check box, and sometimes what you got to do, because I really was going to pick Adams in this spot, but once I did my checklist, the Texans actually came up, bigger, and who's the better receiver? In my opinion, the better receiver is Hopkins, and that's not to take anything away from Adams. He's great. But I did a checklist, and just like the number 1, I thought I was going to pick Barkley. It wound up being, after my checklist, Elliott. I thought I was going to pick Adams. at 7, and I did my checklist, and it came out on Hopkins' side. And that's sometimes how you have to do this. Now, I have a couple of controversial picks coming up at 9 and 10. And, I'm sure I'll get a couple of comments about it. But before you do any of that, just think about it intelligently. And, we have 2 free agents that are the best at their position. One is Le'Veon Bell, and one is Antonio Brown. And before you flip out on me, think with your brain first. They were not originally in my top 10. They weren't even in my top 12 because they're free agents. Who are they going to go to? Are they going to go to the Raiders, and have Derek Carr throwing the ball? Are they going to go Jets and Darnold throwing the ball? This and that. But how in the world can you leave off the number 1 running back in the game, Le'Veon Bell, a year rested, and the number 1 wide receiver, Antonio Brown? Again, I went through this 100 times. They were lucky to make my top 15 originally, just to let you know. But again, I did a checklist, and I looked at all the things that were non-intangibles, put a whole box in, and every time I did it, talking about, offenses, rankings, talent, the player, the team, even if they're on a team that doesn't have a great offense, how in the world, I really didn't think about it, it's not that hard to figure out, how in the world can you leave off Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell in the top 10? You just can't. They're going to get their numbers. Maybe not Pittsburgh Steelers numbers, but they're going to get their numbers. And Le'Veon Bell, don't forget, he catches the ball. He's like the best receiving running back in the game. And he's going to get, his numbers. It's just the way it is. And even if he's on a bad team, they're still going to give him the rock. You know what I'm saying? And Antonio Brown, people just don't realize what a great route runner, this guy is. And he gets open. And whether, it's Derek Carr throwing the ball. And, don't forget, a couple of years ago, Derek Carr was having like an MVP type year. He's still the same player, but what people don't realize is it takes you a while to come back from injury. And he had no one to throw to, and that team was decimated. And, I like the Raiders. I like the direction going in. I like Gruden. I like the coach. And I think they're going to do really, really well. And even if it's Derek Carr throwing the ball, I'm putting Antonio Brown in the top 10. Are you kidding me? Think about it. It doesn't matter who's throwing him the ball. I could throw him the ball, and he put up numbers. No, not really. But, come on. Again, when I originally did this list, before anyone says anything, I did not have him even in my top 15. But the more I thought about it, the more I put my intelligence into it and thought about it from all angles, I was like, there's just no way you can leave these guys out of the top 10. As far as their thing, I would obviously put Le'Veon Bell in. His numbers will be a little higher than Antonio Brown's, depending on where they go. I might change this list, but just a guessing game of where they'll go. I'm putting them in the top 10. If I have to pick at 9 and 10, and Le'Veon Bell and Antonio Brown are available, I'm picking them. Period. Okay. Period. No discussion. And as far as 11 and 12, this is when it gets a little dicey. There's going to be guys like Thielen, Julio Jones that are not on this list. Keenan Allen, Odell Beckham not on this list. Mahomes, he's going to come in, believe it or not, in the second round for me, late. But usually I don't pick a quarterback that early. But anyway, they're not going to be on this list because I think at this point you have to look at a running back like James Conner of Pittsburgh. They still have a good, receiving core, still a good team, better than average defense, underrated defense, and they still have a good offensive line. They're going to create holes. Connor really came into his own. I like him solid at number 11, and definitely you can't keep Michael Thomas off the top 12 list. You just can't. And I could have put Thomas. Might even be a bit of a sleeper pick. He might, come in at like 8, 9, 10. And if he's available at that pick, you have to kind of, think about maybe drafting him. And so he could definitely go a lot higher, but there's a lot of people to choose from, and you have to think of some teams only have running back by committee, you see. So you have to start throwing in some running backs in that top 12 that you wouldn't normally do, but there's a lot of teams that are really into this committee thing, and that basically eliminates those teams from fantasy football consideration, and so I feel the need to put Connor in here for that reason. I could have thrown in Mixon. I could have thrown in, some other guys, Dalvin Cook if he's healthy. But I kind of like, Mixon comes in very early in the next round. He's actually my 13th pick if you really want to know. But I like Michael Thomas at the number 12. He's solid. I'd like to see another receiver on that team. If he had another receiver on the team, I'd probably go higher for me. But it's a good team, and he's going to get his opportunities, and he's definitely a solid 12. Like I said, he could go as high as 7 or 8. Definitely. So that's the pick for the top 12. I'm going to also put 13 through 24, the first 2 rounds of a 12 team league on. And then I'll, put in 24 through 36, 36 to 48. Those will actually be done on our website, Fantasy Football RSVP, on our Patreon page that you pay $7.77, pardon me, for that, and then you'll get, the list from 24 on, which we're still trying to, rank them correctly. And so those will be, but the first 24 is going to be complimentary. And next few days, next week, I'll come out with 13 through 24. Mahomes comes in at the end of that list, believe it or not. Usually I don't pick quarterback for the 3rd round, but his numbers are going to be really good. So anyway, I'm Dean Curry, president founder of Fantasy Football RSVP. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel for more updates, so on and so forth. And so have yourself a wonderful day.